How is everybody doing today? Got a lot of stuff to go over. Got a lot of stuff to cover today. Got an earnings call. I know a lot of people are excited about earnings call. I'm gonna go over what I expect. And like I said, man, I'm watching a lot of this stuff at this point, and it's just like there's no way this can keep going. A lot of things that are happening that are accelerating. A lot of the things I thought was going to happen, and I'm going to show you guys why Bitcoin's exploding, and that's another sign for us that everything is going exactly how we want. So, again, guys, AMC and everything. I'm going to break this down. I was on Twitter today for quite a while. And I was jumping in between space calls and just kind of seeing the vibe, trying to get what everybody's feeling like for the earnings call. And I feel like expectations. And here's the thing. You guys know, like I said, I want people to just, have that information going into it. I'm not trying to put anybody down, but expectations I feel are way higher than they should be. I feel like I have a ton of people talking in space calls about hundreds of millions in profit. And unfortunately, I don't believe that that's where we're going to be. But let's go ahead and break down this earnings call. So one of the things with this earnings call that I'm excited to find out is, is Adam Aaron behind the scenes? Has he been doing some of this distribution deal? Because that's where we're going to start making a lot of this money. Has he been closing down some theaters? Has he gotten any farther with some licensing deals with sports? That would be a big event. I want to know if he, like I said, closing down more theaters and buying any other theaters that are more profitable and closing down non-profitable. That's the things we want to start seeing. And I'm hoping we get distribution numbers, like if we can kind of see more in the contract numbers on how much they made. If they made a shit ton also on merchandise deals for other theaters. So, like I said, I expect earnings to be way higher than what these guys are projecting. But let's go ahead and let's get into the numbers and what they say and what I think is going to happen here. So let's go ahead and let's look back. So the Q4 box office. Now, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people are pissed off at Adam Aaron when he did that tweet. But I think he was just trying to get you guys to, not expect a super great quarter because of all the problems that we had. Now, one of the things that would have changed all of this would have been having Dune 2, which we'll get into that in a little bit here, but I just want to show you guys these numbers here. So you got 1.857. Now, if you look at Q3 when we were profitable and you look at the box office numbers, then you're at 2.648. So there's a pretty big difference there. You're talking over 700 million. 757 million. That's a pretty big difference at the box office. So, yes, we have distribution, which will raise our numbers, and we could have grabbed more of this box office, because that's the thing. You don't need the box office to be as high if you're getting more people coming to your theaters. So we'll see, what percentage they got. Hopefully that is increasing. More and more going into... Sorry, give me 1 second. I just got done running with Murphy, and then he took off on me. And to chase his butt down to the park. He goes crazy sometimes, but let's get back to this here. So in Q4 here, like I said, I mean, the box office numbers just weren't there. If we would have had Dune 2, and you guys can already see with Dune 2, it's eyeing 170 million globally for the box office debut. This movie was going to smash it, you guys. And that's the thing. This was another 500, 600, 700 million dollar movie in that time period that you would have been able to add, sorry, good grief, let me take a drink, I haven't got my breath yet, that you would have been able to add to this number. Obviously, that would have been globally, so you only would have added about 400 million-ish, but that's a very big jump to where, and let me get to one more thing here quick in a second. If you would have added another 400 million to this number, I mean, you're talking 2.2, but one of the things that I want you guys to remember, we showed you guys the year-end totals on this website. And I showed you the year-end totals by all the official websites as well. And this was off 165 million. So it's off estimated around 47 million a quarter. So if you would add that, you would have actually had a 2.3 billion and the distribution, and you would have had suites. So you would have had a lot different story than what you're looking at now. And then on top of that, you would have had all the concession stands with the Dune sales. So you would have definitely 100%, if Dune would not have gotten moved back, had a profitable quarter. But by losing that, I just don't see us getting there because the box office numbers alone, they just weren't too big enough. They just weren't there, unfortunately. But when you guys want to go ahead and we look at Q3 numbers, the revenue that we had was $1.4 billion. They expect us to be at 1.06. Now, here's the thing. They're never right. They're always wrong. They're always way wrong. I expect us to be a lot higher, a lot higher. And on top of that, I mean, here's one of the things that I don't, if you don't have Twitter, because I know a lot of people just have YouTube. They don't have Twitter. If you go on Twitter and you just type in AMC, and I do it a lot, I just type on AMC on the side, you can just search it, and then you'll just see posts on the company. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people are sitting there buying boxes, and I'm talking a box of these suites. They're spending $200 on these boxes at a time, and it's not like it's just one post. I'm seeing 30 of these posts in 10, 15 a day. There are so many of these people posting this. I think the sales on a lot of these things are going to be a lot higher than they think. On top of that, merchandise for Taylor Swift, Beyonce, we don't know those total numbers, but those should be a lot higher. We don't know what percentage of the box office we got. Popcorn, when it got expanded. We don't really know that. I wish they would give us more numbers on popcorn. I really do. I wish they would kind of break it down more instead of, just lumping it in with other categories. I wish we could actually have some better figures for that. But I do believe popcorn. So, I believe this number is going to be more towards 1.15 to 1.2 instead of 1 billion. I don't believe it'll be this low. And then again, we don't know what percentage we got with the other distribution deals. But one of the things that, I thought AMC was also going to kill it because I thought that these concerts were going to do a lot better. If you go look at the total distribution. Now, this isn't anything to be ashamed of. This is incredible, you guys. To do over 200 million in your first time at distribution and having a month to do it, that's impressive. So you basically became a distribution, company in a month and had a month and a half to 2 months to kind of squeeze something in before the year end. And you ended up squeezing in over 213 million. That's impressive. Like I said, whether you like the guy or not, you have to give it up. That is still an impressive thing right there. So we don't know what percentage we're getting out of that. We don't know what percentage between the other things. Now, one of the things I want people to understand also that hurt AMC and hurt our earnings and also would have helped us definitely be profitable. One of the things Taylor Swift did was she did $13 tickets. This number right here would have been a lot higher. This would have been a lot higher. AMC, you guys got to remember here too. AMC last year, they did that new stadium-style seating. So they would have been able to charge more for those, select seats. Well, they would have paid more for that. All the Taylor Swift fans, they wouldn't have cared. They would have paid the extra $9, $10, $9, $10 a ticket. Well, if AMC had about 10 million of this at an extra $9, $10 a ticket, that's a big chunk of change there for AMC. That's a huge chunk of change there where AMC could have also, with Dune, been very, very profitable. So you're not going to always have this circumstance as well. One of the things I do want to show you guys, again, AMC, I wanted them to get way more into distribution. This will be a way where we can get out of debt, not need to do these capital raises. Again, I do expect one more capital raise here. I'm hoping he waits and hopefully the price recovers and rebounds because this is the thing. Right now, the stock's going to be as low as it's going to be. Because I told you guys right away, this quarter sucks ass. It sucks ass. If it wasn't for Dune, this quarter would have been horrible. It would have been horrible for movies. February was not there. It just wasn't there, guys. It was awful. The selections was awful. The strike finally hit us. But that's the thing. After this quarter, we're done with that shit. It's moved on. Not only that, these guys need more content. So what are they doing? They're moving things up. They're moving things up. You're constantly seeing more and more and more movies get moved up. You're going to see things that were going to be released in 2025 now come into 2024 as well. The rest of the year, I'm not going to continuously pull up the same movie list and be like, here, look at the rest of the year. The rest of the year is insanely better than this first quarter. It's not even close. The rest of this year, AMC, if they do the right things, they do get a couple distribution things. AMC could very well be profitable the rest of the year. Getting into 2025, if you guys watch the IMAX earnings thing, 2025 is going to be the best year for AMC. As long as we can get there, and there's no threat of bankruptcy. So this is what I'm saying. Like, people that are worried about the play, just relax. Everything is getting better and better for us, while it's getting harder and harder and harder for these guys. Now, again, these studios, they need more money, and they're having a ton of problems. I'm going to show you guys just how much better it's going to start getting for us as well with AMC and with movie theaters. Now, one of the things I want to stress here with Dune 2, they said that they're not going to put it on HBO Max until about July if it does well in the theaters. These guys are no longer, they're losing profits. They're all getting fucked on these streaming services. They're all having to do what? Raise prices. Netflix just raised prices, and now they said they're going to raise prices again. Well, what else is Netflix going to do? And there were people that were warning you, when this starts to happen, it will be the end of streaming services. What else is Netflix doing now? They're making subscription plans. Like, you have to upgrade to certain tiers now, so they're restricting movie. Hey, we're going to have this good movie, but you have to pay for this upgraded plan to watch the new movie. And they're doing it on something as stupid as Thanksgiving to do their test runs on. So Netflix is going to end up paying $40, $50 here to be able to watch these movies. Otherwise, they're going to have to put them in the theaters, and at that point, people are going to say, well, fuck it, I'll just go see it in the theater instead of paying an extra $25 to maybe see one more movie you're going to put in the theater for this stupid-ass plan. So, streaming services are shooting themselves in the foot. Now, I know people are laughing at 2025. I'm not saying, you guys, me saying 2025 it has nothing to do with the squeeze. This is fundamentally related. The squeeze is going to happen before that. They're not making it to 2025. I'll get into that in a minute. If you guys think they're going to get out of this, they're not. There's no way in hell they're getting out of this. And I think the feds are starting to kind of tame them where they want them to go, but it's not enough. And the problem is I told you right away, the second they start to pick the banks for even a millisecond, because it's that bad, inflation will start to come back. And that's why Ryan Cohen said they're going to need to pick between the banks or inflation. And it's that point right now. And I'm going to show you all that in a second here. Like I said, it's accelerating so much faster. There's things other people are doing because they all see it coming. It is so fucked right now. It's not even, dude, it is so fucked right now. The economy is about to have a horrible wake-up call. The boom that's about to happen is going to be on a fucking whole new level, and I'm going to show you everything, data, everything that will show you exactly what's going to happen here. It's going to be bad. But like I said, so for AMC's earnings, I do expect us to not have a positive earnings. I do expect us here in the next month or two to do an equity raise, or capital raise here, I'm sorry, to kind of make up the cash burn for this quarter, next quarter, and then from there on in, like I said, we can start seeing profitable quarters. He needs to start coming up with new revenue streams, as always. But let's go ahead and go on to the squeeze, the economy, Bitcoin, what's going on with that, because it's all telling us a story. And the story, you guys, I know you've heard it forever, but it's like it is so bad right now. These bubbles at this point. And I'm going to show you some shit and you're going to go, what the fuck? It's over, dude. The problem with these guys is they were able to sit there and live off all this bullshit. They were able to live off the feds. They were able to live off banks. They were able to live off middle-class banks. They were able to live off the big banks. And the feds were able to bail them out. And that is how this game has always been played. The feds aren't going to stop this. The feds cannot stop this. The feds themselves are fucked. The feds, listen to this. The Federal Reserve themselves are fucked. And not only that, if you guys haven't noticed, their QE, it hasn't really gone fast, has it? It's going slow as fuck. Well, why? Because they can't sell off assets. Well, if you can't sell off assets to do QE, you're going to have to keep rates or raise them. So before we get into that, though, one thing here quick again with the streaming services and just showing you again, AMC's future is better and better and better. And once again, we did. I don't know if I skipped over this, but AMC, we did land the Roblox movie for 2025 as distribution. AMC theaters. I know some people are going, who cares? On 5 sites that I've seen, it's the 25th most anticipated movie of that month, or I'm sorry, of that year. Kids are going to go nuts on this movie. So if AMC can sit there and, like I said, lock in about 4 to 5 movies on top of selling them, and I'm talking, you know, big movies like this, top 25 movies going forward, this is the stuff you want to start seeing, that will be no problem. I'm telling you, that will be no problem at that point. Now, let's keep going here. So Paramount and Warner Brothers, they're no longer going to merge. I don't know if you guys have seen. Warner Brothers is in like all chaos. They're trying to sign all these actors and make it attractive, and then they're trying to sell themselves. Well, nobody wants to buy fucking Warner Brothers at this point right now. Like I said, that's just another walking dumpster fire. So more competition, more distribution. This leads to more distribution chances for AMC. So again, brighter future for them. But I want to start getting into the squeeze. I want to start getting into the economy. I want to start getting into this boom. I want to start showing you everything that's going to happen. And it's going to happen within the next couple months now at this point. And all the signs are there. And if you guys haven't watched this, you just saw this a couple years ago. You saw the exact fucking signs. And I'm going to show you the exact same thing. And if people want to try and ignore it, I mean, good God, I don't know what more to do. I don't know what more to show you at that point. So before we even get into that, we always like to show that one quick article. So Ant Group actually outbid Citadel for Credit Suisse in China. I just thought that was very interesting. If you guys aren't aware of that, I believe China, after all these new regulations, that new president came out, he put that banker to prison in life, and then if he does any misbehaving, sentenced to death. The second that happened, 2 people that worked in China's Hong Kong unit in indexes arbitrage, which means they were shorting and fucking cheating and doing all the shit that they shouldn't be doing. They fled the country and they came back to the United States. And this was all after Citadel's basically trying to hide all of the transferred fucking shorts and all the transferred risk that I told you guys these guys do. One of the things that people get wrong in the market is they can transfer risk as well. And I've showed you guys banks transferring risk. I've shown you they can do it. Banks can sit there and continuously transfer risk, and they can do it through these ISDA contracts and then move them offshore. Well, the problem is when you sit there and move them all offshore, and suddenly that country you moved them all offshore to suddenly is cracking down on that behavior. You got to buy that shit so that those regulators can't get to it, and you can go ahead and legally move that shit, that risk again, to another country or another place so those guys aren't able to get to it. And all of a sudden, now you got Kenny Boy here. He's got some competition. Well, this is the problem here is, and I sat there and I read this, and it's such a joke, is the Chinese government is going to probably end up siding with Citadel, which makes no sense because they fucking hate Citadel. So right now you have a group that has a higher bid than you. Okay? And this group works with governments. They're known to work with governments. So I feel like it's the government trying to step in and say, fuck you, I'm going to get it. So this group is known to work with government. And here they are trying to go in here and outbid Kenny Boy. Well, I read more and more that the Chinese government is more inclined to get outside investors than inside. But it's like, but here's a special case, is because this company works along with your government. So it's like, I feel like it's the government trying to sneak it in front of Kenny Boy so he just can't steal it. So, I mean, this is a very interesting story, people. And it's something that I want people to kind of watch. Because, like I said, Kenny's fighting a little battle over here in China. He really is. One more thing here. Another hedge fund that went ahead. And this is a thing I think we're going to start to see before this crash finally happens. A lot of these people a risk has been transferred. They transferred it out of country, moved it to hedge funds out of other countries. Well, these other ones have been just taking massive losses, massive losses, massive losses. And now they're all suddenly leaving those countries when they haven't been here basically ever, and now they're relocating to the United States. So they, don't get in trouble. So a lot of these people, like I said, a lot of these places where they're able to transfer risk, move this, move that, move this, they're going down. These fucking trash criminals are going to get caught. I'm telling you. Now, Bitcoin here is telling a very, very interesting story. And a lot of people are going, what's going on with Bitcoin? And if you listen to me, and it wasn't financial advice, I told people when these spot Bitcoin ETFs came out, you knew the stock was going to crash down. I'm sorry, the price, not stock, the price. Again, so you stock market talk. You knew the price was going to crash down right away because all the big boys needed to get it cheaper. Then they got it all on OTC, and then they're going to blow that up. Well, now on top of that, now you have everybody running because you have all these people seeing the big picture. Now that they got their hands in there, now that they see this, I feel like Bitcoin's pretty much here to stay in this area to keep rising. Now, one of the things I said is, I mean, Bitcoin is obviously expensive, and there are people out there like, sweet, and I always tell people to look for a play off news. And one of the things I said is, Coinbase is going to be the custodial to 8 of those ETFs. So Coinbase has a pretty good potential to run. Now, again, never financial advice. If I say I think something could do that, that means go research it. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but go look at the company. But since we said that, Coinbase has went up $73. So anybody that's done that play, good job. Now, why are people running to that? I also said Ethereum's going to run. Guess what? Ethereum ran. It's going to be cryptos that actually have, purposes. And here's the thing. You got to look at what's happening in the United States. You have to see what's happening now worldwide. You have to now look at everybody's central banks. Now, I'm going to show you guys something. And when you start to look at this as a big scale, a big picture, it's bursting. It's done. It is done. You cannot have something called fiat currency. When you have $4 trillion in existence, you can't print $16 trillion. You can't. You can't do it in less than a year. You cannot print $16 trillion, 4 times the total amount in existence, and not put it into your economy. You just killed your economy. And then you want to go ahead and blame COVID and do everything, but then it was nothing but corruption, fraud, and nothing else. Like I said, where did the trillions go? Because all our lives went harder. Well, here's the thing. When you look at what's now starting to shift, these corporations, they're looking over going, well, fuck, we need to move our assets because what has been going on in the stock market? It's gone up. It's flying up. S&P, all this stuff. Well, why? It's because of the Mag 7. It's because of like 3 things. It's because of AI. It's because of like 4 whole companies, okay? And those whole companies are cooking the books. It's all off false numbers. And not only are they off false numbers, it's public information at this point. So many people have exposed the false numbers. What happened a couple years ago right before the crash that I showed you guys? Do you guys remember when there was a party and Powell came and he showed everybody, or he brought his child, and I showed everybody the law. If his kid's at the age that his kid was at, Powell can't say anything to anybody. But those laws don't apply to his son. That's why he brought his son and not his wife. So he could explain things and tell people things. And then once those certain high-end profile people found out, the Jeff Bezos, the Gates, they all sold. Now, before I even get into this stuff, what are we seeing right now? You got Gates selling, everybody's selling. All these fucking people are selling. For the first time ever, Tommy Tuberville selling. An insanely corrupt person. Jamie Dimon, a person who worked with Jeffrey Epstein, a person who hides that 13 of his employees visited the island. The fact that he knows that his bank did all of this, processed over $1 billion in transactions. This guy's a piece of shit scum of the earth for the first time ever since 2006. He sold stock. The Walton family sold $4.5 billion worth of Walmart. Bezos, Gates, Zuckerberg, Tommy Tuberville. I can go on and on. These guys aren't just selling. They're fucking selling everything. They're selling their massive, massive stakes. They're taking billions. People go, well, if they knew a mass crash was coming, why would they? No, just like they didn't last time. They sold a big stake. They sold stakes, and then they go, here, there's a huge amount. Well, watch the thing go down, but I'll have my assets. Why everything's bottoms, pennies on the dollars. I'll smash it all up, and then by the time it recovers, I'll have my assets, and then more, and then I'm good to go. You can't make it that obvious. If all of a sudden all these guys suddenly sold off 40%, 50% stakes, which Tommy went ahead and sold it all. That dude didn't give a fuck. He let the world know. Tommy let the world know. He gone. But it's all there. Well, guys, guess what? There's a new upcoming party with all the elites, and all the same fucking people are there. Minus Powell. Another elite event party's coming, and they're all selling. Well, not only that, let's get into actual data. Let's get into actual facts now. What is happening in the United States? You guys, we're now going to hit what we call stagflation. Everything, the economy, everything's about to go boom. It's going to crash hard as hell. People are seeing the fiat currency, the value it's going to be, the amount they're going to need to print, and they're looking over going, I'm getting into this. I'm getting into money market funds. This is why you have Jamie Dimon freaking out. He just came out on an interview and said, who cares about Bitcoin? I don't want to talk about Bitcoin. It's pet rock. It's this, it's that. No, you don't want to talk about Bitcoin because if more people start pulling out of banks like they're doing, you're so screwed it's not even funny. Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem with fiat currency. I hate to talk anything JP Morgan ever says. They lie about a lot of shit. But this is one thing that they're not lying about this. This is exactly what's going to happen. The problem right now, as I told you right away, at the beginning of this year, you're going to have mass job layoffs. And you're seeing that left and right. Macy's is now closing 150 more stores. I showed you how many bank branches across every other stream. Jobs are getting cut at a massive, massive pace. But what's happening? Prices are still going up. People are going in debt like you have never seen before. Nobody's going to be able to spend anything. But prices are going to still rise. Not only that, I'm going to prove to you guys, and I showed you this, and I was like, people are pricing in, oh, they're going to cut rates. No, they're not. Not only, I told you, not only will they not cut rates this year, maybe one, they're probably going to hike them. Now they're coming out and admitting that. So here we go. They're talking about how stagflation's coming because at this point you have too many bubbles popping. You have credit drying up at such a fast pace because everybody's about to take bombs. Now, the way we win is, I told you, we need banks, all these lenders, all this credit. You need this credit to dry up for the hedge funds. Because guess what? When their credit dries up, they're all over leveraged. They all made bad plays. They've all made bad bets. But as long as these banks, these criminal JP Morgans, all of these pieces of shit, I showed you the bomb, and I'm going to show you proof right now. It's done. When this bomb blows up, the big banks are going to get so screwed. That's your MOAS. When the derivatives bomb blows, when this goes, and they're all coming now. It's all coming right now. So they're talking about the scenario, well, rates have been so low, they're now going up too long, the economy's going down, you have too much problems coming in the commercial real estate, you have jobs going down. They even admit in here, while they were trying to fight inflation, they didn't do it hard enough. They should have raised rates higher and longer, and that's how screwed up it was to begin with. Well, inflation's rising again, you guys. I don't know if you guys have noticed, they kind of trying to keep it under the weather here. It's going back up. Inflation's rising again. And they're all going, well, what's going to happen when prices skyrocket again? We're following the same exact path as 1970. Hey, we're on the 1970 style exact course because we can't stop printing. We can't stop fixing the problem. We band-aided it. But you band-aided it by the trillions and trillions, and instead of fixing it, you're spending more than you did when it was no debt. You guys, this is done. Fiat, the system, this is why they're all running to Bitcoin. You now need to have a thing that's not reliant on a dying, defaulting. The amount of we'll get in a second here. Like I said, this is so messed up. It's not even funny. Job cuts this month. Last month I showed you it was an all-time high. It was an all-time high since they started tracking the data. Well, guess what? They still had 2 more days for this. So here you go. You still had. This will be about 86, 87,000 again. So you're now jobs are going up. Job cuts they're skyrocketing. Why? No one has money to spend at any of these corporations. Okay? Well, if no one has money to spend at these corporations, what happens? All these people and all these hedge funds and all these guys that own all these corporations, they're not able to borrow anymore. Well, serious delinquencies of credit cards are those 90 days or more past due have reached the highest level since 2009. So now people are defaulting on credit cards. I showed you mass borrowing. Everybody went ahead, maxed out their credit cards. Then they went over to buy now, pay later. They maxed out their buy now, pay laters. They're not paying buy now, pay later at all. They're not even paying it back. They're not going to. They're going to default on all that because I showed you it does not hurt your credit. So what's the risk? Who cares? I'm just going to buy it, take it, default, never use your program again. Who cares? That's why I told you a firm is already doing layoffs, and there was another play. You know, guys, when the economy shows you a firm is just giving out mass loans, not doing credit checks, it's a Ponzi bomb about to blow up. If you play it right, there you go. But here's the thing. People are running out. They're drying up. So if you have people losing jobs, prices now are doing what? They're skyrocketing. Prices are at an all-time high and they're skyrocketing. Now look at this chart. It's not like they're going up a little bit. They're flying. They're flying. God damn it. I wish I could. Dude, my computer always does this. There you go. There you go. Okay. I hate this. It's my mouse. I'm sorry. I can't do it the way I want it. I want to zoom. There we go. If you guys see this, like I said, it's just been flying and flying and flying. It's not, and now you have inflation coming back. So now if you're the feds, what are you doing? Look at the feds right now. They're operating at, look at this loss. I told you last week they're going to maybe hit 150 billion. They're at 152.5. That means next week the feds are going to be operating at 164 billion loss. Holy shit. And it's going to keep growing and growing. So that means you got the feds borrowing from the treasury. Instead, they're not depositing. They're not borrowing, but they're not depositing into that. They owe it. So they are borrowing because they owe this money. And when they're supposedly, cash flow positive again, they're supposed to pay it back. Well, here's my question. And here's the question for the feds. When all your assets are overvalued, and like I told you, the feds are fucked themselves. You guys, the feds themselves are fucked. And they have the money printer. That's how insane this is. When your assets are all overvalued, and you're going to now take all just losses and losses and losses, and your number one asset is what? Mortgage-backed securities at $2.8 trillion. Well, if you're going to take losses on $2.8 trillion worth of securities, that's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of losses. Now you're operating at a loss, and now you already owe that on top of that. And now you're going to have to print just to make that up, just to make all that up. Like I said, the feds themselves are managing the economy, the money, and all this shit, and they themselves are operating at a loss, and a big one. And it's growing and growing by the day. And not only that, the longer they raise rates, what's going to happen? These losses are going to grow harder. They're going to grow by, they just grew by 8, 12. Next week, it might be 14 to 16. And what are they going to do when they're growing by 25, 30 billion a week? It's just going to get worse. Now, here's the thing. The Fed come out and they talk about the reflection on the economy. So this happened yesterday, okay? They're talking about, the reflection on the economy, the bank lending program. And I told you guys, they're going to end this stuff because they have no choice. Now, this is where the bubbles and all this stop. March, all this is going to get so insane, so nuts. There's no way these banks make it through it. On top of that, some things that are developing now in the commercial real estate that just happened this week, it's like the most mind-blowing thing I've ever seen in my life, and it's going to change everything. And the banks, I'll show you that in a second, but they're going to hold some bags that they never planned on holding, and it's pretty crazy. So, again, the economy's getting worse, jobs are getting worse, less and less people are going to be spending at corporations, they're going to be laying off, they're trying to get higher and higher wages. So corporations are going to whine and say, well, we need less. What's that mean? You're going to have more and more commercial real estate problems. So, getting back to all of this, let's talk about the briefing here. So these guys come out and what do they say? There's a lot of risk over here, blah, blah, blah. We wanted to get, inflation where it is. There's tons of surprises. We never know, right? The typical crap. And then you come here. While the current state of the to talk about the monetary policy, it looks like we're going to bring it down to 2% over time. It now talks about, are willing to remain I remain willing now to raise the federal rates at a future meeting should incoming data indicate the progress of inflation is actually stalled or reversed. And then he comes down here later on again to talk about how data is actually showing that. And then I'm showing you, again, more data showing that we're on the rise. So now he's coming out saying we're going to have to raise them again. Because here's the thing. When they ended up raising it, ended up equaling about 5.8%, which did not equal. It wasn't hard enough. You didn't fight it enough. It didn't fight enough. You had to go higher for longer. And that's the scary thing. Because you stole and printed too much. You did. And then you put it into people that were not paying taxes. And then you decided to try to charge your middle class. Well, you killed your middle class. I showed you the other week. Your 1% now has more money than your middle class. Well, they have more money than your middle class and lower class. Congratulations to slavery. You now have a concentration of wealth, and your 1% has more money than your entire middle class and lower class. Something's not working here. So, I want you guys to read this entire release here. I'm going to post this in the little, post this in chat. Read this release. So now the Federal Reserve's admitting we're going to have to probably raise rates instead. I don't think we're going to be able to cut them. They didn't go down lower. He breaks down the numbers. He breaks down the data. So in other words, the Feds are now looking over going, well, crap, we're going to have to raise rates again. Which does what? It hurts banks even more. And now it makes their unrealized losses even worse. It also makes their ability for lending even harder. It also makes loans that they give out now cost even more to give out. While they're already losing money on loans they give out more right currently. So if you raise it now, there's literally no way they're going to give loans out, which means nobody's going to go into commercial real estate, which also means nobody's going to get home loans. You see the problem. Well, your entire economy now, your bubble is completely bursted. It's popped as high as it can go. And they're now finally going, we're kind of screwed. How are you guys going to pay this back when we're operating, again, by next week? Next week when I make a video, the Feds will be at 160. They'll be operating at 160 billion plus loss. Well, it gets even worse. Okay, now it gets even worse. I want to show you how much worse this is going to get. So, here's your government. Why all of this is happening. Here's what they say to you. GDP grew by $380 million. I'm sorry, $334 billion. Sorry, billion. GDP grew by $334 billion in Q4. See? But what they don't tell you is how much it costed, the debt. To grow that was 834 billion. So to gain 334 billion in GDP, we gained 834 billion in debt. And remember what Powell said? The U.S. isn't on a sustainable path. We're borrowing from future generations. Well, in one quarter, you borrowed $500 billion from future generations. Do you guys see the problem? Now you guys are looking over. You're seeing this. Now I'm gonna. This is worldwide, you guys. We're gonna get into this now, and you're seeing more people getting attracted to crypto, to money market funds. They're getting out of banks. They're getting out of this corruption. They're getting out of. I can't have my money in a bank. I don't earn enough. With inflation, with the cost of living, I don't earn enough. So more and more are gonna keep pulling out. Well, that's not your main problem. Your government, again, like I just showed you, it costed us 3 times the amount of debt than what we gained in one quarter. That is scarier than shit. I showed you guys last week the national debt was 34 billion 289. Look at that. We already borrowed in 1 week. In 1 week, we borrowed $100 billion. We added $100 billion to the debt in 1 week. In a week. So when we sit and keep doing this and keep adding $2-3 trillion to debt, and then 8.2 trillion set to renew, now the government and all this, guess what? Our interest is going to be over 2.3 trillion next year. They're not going to be able to do anything. The economy, as you see, is collapsing and crumbling. Fiat currency is crumbling. So what do? You run to a different asset. Like I told people, land. I can't say what I told people, but the other options out there. You got land, you got gold, you got crypto, you got other, physical commodities. You got other places to go and can absorb. A place like a cryptocurrency can absorb. An economy based off of crypto collapsing. That's kind of the point of it. Do you see what I mean? So suddenly, crypto's value, the reason it was created to get away from these broken fiats when they crash, when these economies crash under the printing, the nonstop printing of these feds that are now operating at losses. Well, guess what, guys? This is all around the world. Look at European Central Bank is now operating at a loss for the first time since 2004. Now, when you sit there and you go around, China's operating at a loss. Guess who else is? Japan. Now, when you look around the world and you start to see all of these central banks, all of these people that are printing, all the guys that are in charge of their currency, their fiats, they're all operating at losses because they've been bailing out criminals for 30 years. And now we don't have enough taxes to continue to bail out those criminals. It's not there. And not only that, you gave those criminals one last hurrah by printing $16 trillion. When we had $4 trillion at that time. You destroyed your fiat currency. You destroyed it. Why is everybody running there? Everyone needs a safe spot for what's about to happen. For this boom. Do you guys not think? Let me just ask you a question. Do you guys not think some of these guys here could have bought some of this after these massive sales? Do you not think they go, hey, if I had information and I knew this economy was going to crash and I knew value of Bitcoin, what happens to the value of Bitcoin if the economy crashes, if the market crashes? The value of Bitcoin goes up, doesn't it? So do you think some of these guys might not have bought some of this, ran over there? Because they know ahead of time. They get to go to these special parties we don't get to go to. Why would Jamie Dimon, for the first time in his life, just go, I know I've been here for 18 years, but today's the day. We'll get into all this in a second. Now, this is why I told you. Everybody asks, what's the Black Swan event? What's the bomb? Where's our MOAS? What is going to do it? So I tell everybody with AMC, If you're an AMC and you're listening to this play and you're worrying about your MOAS, you're worrying about a squeeze, you're worrying about this, and you think, there's no chance that when the head of the snake's about to get cut off, and I'm going to show you right now. Some things came out the last 2 days, and it's exactly what I showed everybody. And this shows you this was everything I said. This bomb. This is it. This isn't the phase 6. This is the bomb. This isn't This is it. This is nothing you can do to stop this. There's a giant barge, and it's hitting you, and you're just on an iceberg. I don't care what you try to do to stop that. You're not stopping this thing. Look at this. Bad property debt. Talk to you guys about commercial real estate. I talked to you guys over about it, and I know I've been pounding it. But when you're talking about something by the trillions, how do you stop it? The government, let me, people will say, well, the government, let me tell you what the government's way to stop this was, okay? And then I'm going to tell you if you think that, here's what the government did while they're on their iceberg. Tell me if you think what they did is going to stop this giant, the Titanic's about to hit your little iceberg. What the government did is they said, what we're going to do is we're going to try and put into legislation a bill that will turn $50 billion of commercial real estate into property homes, or into homes, into apartment complexes. That's our solution. So they built the $50 billion wall to stop what did I show you guys? That by the time 2027 hits, it's a $3.8 trillion problem. It's a $929 billion problem by the end of 2024. If I put $50 billion barricade in place, but I have a $1 trillion problem plus coming at me, what do I do? Now, what was the thing I've been showing you guys? The reserves. You guys, they lowered the reserve restrictions. I'm telling you, it's a big deal. They took them away. And the second they took them away, the banks didn't have on hand what they should have had on. Every bank has less reserves than what they need. Every bank is over-leveraged. All of them. What are they doing? They're lying. How? They went to the bank lending program, and they put that in their reserves. That simple. To make it look like they had more than what they needed. It's very simple. And that's why when you saw them, and then they also used it for arbitrage plays to make a little over here and this and that. And that's why when they raised rates, you saw the bank lending program halt big time. And you actually saw people pay back the loans on the bank lending program. The second you guys took away the arbitrage play, big banks suddenly paid back their loans. Or some of it. It wasn't like they paid back 50 million, but they did pay back like $6-7 billion, which is still, that could have just been JP Morgan using, hey, all right, we're done here now. And then we're going to go ahead and not put, like I said, we had to go ahead and get our guys raise our stuff. So big old Jamie Dimon, because we knew Jamie was going to go ahead and sell some stock. Maybe he went ahead and borrowed some money from there. Like I said, it's just a fucking gong show. But either way, let's get back to what's happening here. And this is what I told you. This is why they can't stop it. The Fed can't go over and say, we're going to go ahead and give you more. We're going to go ahead and take on bad assets. And here's the thing. In 2000 and... What the hell is that? Sorry. So when 2008 happened, what ended up happening is the Feds, they actually bailed them out by buying up a whole bunch of mortgage-backed securities. A couple years ago, they went out and they bought a whole bunch of mortgage-backed securities. Because one of the things that stopped the financial crisis, a bigger banking crisis and a bigger crisis over the last 2 years, is these Feds buying up all these defaulting houses. And that's why the housing market still as propped up as it is. Because you had the Feds doing it, you had BlackRock doing it, and then I showed you guys all these hedge funds started buying them up. Well, the problem is for these guys is, if rates go up, like they're saying right now, well, we might have to raise rates again. And you're going into stagflation. Nobody's going to buy those houses. So what's going to happen? Eventually, you're going to see defaults, which I'll get into here in a minute. They're going to skyrocket. And eventually, the value is going, your supply is going to go up no matter what they want. And then they're going to go ahead and they're going to add their apartment and this and that. And supply will go up, and the value of those assets, whether you want to or not, are going to go down. Well, they're not going to be able to sell them, so they're going to hold on to it, and it's going to make it so it goes down slowly and slowly to the point. Like I said, these guys are all just buying and trying to live for another day, but the problem is all the things they hold on to, every asset alone is connected to a giant bubble. Well, if you go back over here, and this is what I was all coming to. I told you guys they don't have the reserves to back their loans. The feds cannot. I told you, eventually they're going to have to pick the banks. See where I'm getting at here? They're going to have to pick between the banks or the economy and inflation. Well, guess what? Bad property debt exceeds reserves at the largest U.S. banks. Goldman Sachs is the only bank, listen to this, out of the top 6, listen to this. Goldman Sachs is the only bank out of the top 6 banks that has more assets than debt in these bad commercial real estate loans. Oops. Oops. Well, guess what? That's not even, we haven't even talked about what I told you was going to be another bomb. It's even worse. In the commercial real estate, I'm sorry, not the commercial real estate, the regional banking sector. Commercial real estate. The regional banking sector. Small banks. This is over a third of their portfolios. They're going to go under. Well, guess what? A lot of these bigger banks that I'm showing you right here, they have a lot of connections with these smaller regional banks, so they're going to take big hits with them. And it's going to keep going to the head of the snake, the head of the snake, the head of the snake. Why? Because the head of the snake is the creditor. The head of the snake is the one who bails out your hedge funds and your banks, and it's these top 6 fucking piece of trashes. Well, guess what? It's getting even worse for them. Because look at this. I showed you guys in December, we were about to break $6 trillion in money market funds, right? And then I told you guys the expectations this year for money to move out of banks and into I'm talking just, you guys, just money market funds, not anything else, not gold, not come on, any other thing, anything else, Bitcoin, whatever anyone wants to buy. Just coming out of the banking sector and going into money market funds. They projected to be $1.5 trillion this year. That's a big deal, because guess what that does? That crushes their reserves that is already too low. Now listen to this number here. I want you to listen to these numbers. The average reserves now this counts all 5 banks. Bank of America's asset to bad debt ratio for these loans is 60 cents on the dollar. They have 60 cents worth of assets for every dollar worth of bad debt that they have on these commercial real estate. Bank of America has 60 cents of assets for every dollar worth of debt that they have in this defaulting area. Again, if you're in Bank of America, now the average reserves at JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs. Now I want you to realize too, Goldman Sachs is boosting all of these guys' numbers up, okay? Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, the reserves have fallen from $1.60 a reserve to every dollar of debt to 90 cents for every dollar of debt, which means every one of the 6 averages less than what they have. You have 60 cents at Bank of America, and you have 70 cents and 80 cents at JP Morgan Chase and Citigroup. So these guys are over leveraged in an area that is mass defaulting. Now, why is that about to be a big deal? Well, here's the bombshell, you guys. This just came, and this is the biggest thing. Oh, man, I love it, you guys. This is something where it's like, all right, somebody got their head out of their ass. I mean, I know you're going to take a loss, but it's like, watch this. Canadian pension plan dumps stake in New York commercial real estate project for just $1. They saw that they were going to get in. They saw they were going to take this big loss. The banks, what do? The banks like to, hey, we're going to go ahead and stick you guys with the bill. We're going to let the bill grow and grow and grow and grow. And then when it grows to some insane point, we'll end up doing some crap with their shell companies, default, whatever, and you'll end up sticking with the bill. Pension plan's like, nah, fuck that. They're going to take the loss now. They're going to sell it for $1. And now, guess what? When this project goes under, the new guy that bought this for $1, they don't care. They have $1 invested in it. They're not going to go, oh well, who's going to take the hit? The banks. So now the banks are going to go, the longer I hold this, I can't go ahead and pop it off on these other guys and just have them absorb it. No. See what I'm saying? So now all of a sudden, pensions are fighting back to where, like, we're not going to hold your bags. I'm just going to take my loss, cut it. And you're going to get stuck with these because the longer you guys hold it, and the rates are going to go up, the economy is going to go down, stagflation is going to come on, the dollar is going to get devalued even more because you're going to have to print again, and people are going to run to crypto, they're going to run to money market funds, and they're going to get away from you banks that are giving 0.2%. Well, what did I show you guys? Banks can't afford to give more. They can't afford to give more interest. They can't. Why? I just showed you. They're underwater. How can they give you more? They can't. So incentive every day that goes by to leave the banks, even without me saying to, just grows. And more will figure it out and figure it out. And guess what? Your economy is going to get harder and in a harder place. And next thing you notice, you're going to have people, like I said, trading off Bitcoin, crypto. You're going to see that a lot more type thing where they're going to be like, hey, I need to, maybe trade a penny of, whatever. You're going to do whatever. You're going to, instead of, like I said, it's going to get to the point. The government, like I said, I'm showing you, they're stuck. They're screwed. You got your bubble so big, you can't put any more gum in it. I don't care how much more gum you put in it. It's not going any bigger. It's just not going to. It's popped. You can't come up with any more plans. So what's Powell say? What's Powell say 2 days ago? I'm going to show you exactly what he says. Exactly what I've been saying and what I've been saying for the last month. It's over. Here we go. We're fucked. It basically comes out and goes, it's going to get real interesting here, he says, in March. And yes, it is. It's going to get super interesting. Investors are getting nervous. What's going on? Well, like I told you guys, they came out and said, we're not going to go ahead. We're not extend. Everyone's in there. Oh, God, they're going to extend the bank program or they're going to come up with it. No, they're not. I'm going to show you exactly what they did. I'm going to show you I was right because this is what they wanted them to do. They have no choice. You're going to let banks crash. This is what you're going to do if you're the feds. You're going to let banks crash. You're going to let the ones that are going to, that are managed, are manageable or savable, you're going to now move them into what I told you they're going to do. You're going to move them into just the discount window, and you're going to have control. You're going to move them over into the repo market, and you're going to have more control. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to sign up regional banks, and that's, I told you guys, they're going to just sign up the smaller ones that are going to make it. They're going to let the ones that aren't going to make it go down. You're going to see a domino effect. The lenders are going to take smashes. Then they're going to take harder hits in the real estate. Then they're going to go over and say to the hedge funds, I need that money you owe me, because guess what? Here's what you guys got to realize. What is the one thing Jamie Dimon will never do? What is the one thing any executive will never do? They'll never take a pay cut. And then on top of that, they need a bigger salary next year, or they'll fire people to do it. They don't care. They got to get that bigger salary. It is a must. The greed is always there. So they will always do anything and everything and sacrifice whatever so he can get that bonus and a bigger one, because eventually they all know it's a Ponzi scheme, just like a firm. Do you think the firm officials or executives care that their company is going to go bankrupt probably within a year? No. Why the fuck would they care? Who cares? They gave themselves $20 million, $40 million, $20 million bonus in the meantime. I made basically a Ponzi scheme. I made a business model that I knew would explode. People would not pay me, but I could pay myself out of the company, out of all that money, out of all that stuff I get out. I could still pay myself out of pocket, pay myself out of the people that do pay for a while, and eventually it'll just go away, but who cares? In the meantime, I made $100 million, and then I'll go on to my next business model that will be the same type of Ponzi scheme. What is something that I know will go down? Who cares about my investors? I'll string them along. We'll say, look at how great this stuff is. Yeah, it's a problem. Eventually, we'll end up taking out some equity. You already see the path they're going to go down. Okay, but back to this. So now, Powell already said he's going to let the banks fail. So I told you, in the next 2-3 months, you will have a banking crisis. You will have banks. You have about 12 to 13, 14, 15 small banks you've never heard of. They'll all go down. You'll see a whole bunch more go down, but you'll suddenly see the Fed discount window skyrocket. Those will be the ones they save. You'll see a ton of these loans suddenly come in, and they'll obliterate a whole bunch more of these. They'll take huge losses across the boards on all these banks. And what are the banks going to do? They'll do look, here's my proof. Here is my proof. Oh, what's that stupid girl? What's that idiot's name? I'll just do this. Okay, here's my proof. So this chick, your bank's losing billions of dollars. You're in a ton of problems. You have a ton of mountains of issues coming. You had to lay off you laid off tons of your staff. I'm talking 30,000. It was 20,000 people, and they still have 30,000 more to go. I mean, unreal what you're doing. You're slashing and cutting and slashing everything, letting go of everyone in sight that walks down the halls. And then what did you do? You gave yourself a raise, even though you're operating at a loss. Citigroup gives them... I cut all these people's jobs. Well, guess what else this idiot did? She has $1.5 billion that she didn't account for in severance packages now that they have to pay. Oops. But so she caused another... She goes, we cut $1 billion over here. It was I cut over $1 billion over here. Yeah, but then you added $1.5 billion in liabilities. And then you gave yourself a raise. You gave yourself a raise for adding hundreds of billions in liability to your company. Great job. Do you see what I mean? So it's not like this stuff, these guys aren't going to, they have no choice but to go ahead and say, all right, now at this point, I have to go ahead and get money somewhere. So they're going to collect on hedge funds, other banks, market makers, all these guys that they're like, hey, I have these contracts with you. You got to close some of this out. I need some of this money. I can't just collect fees. And that's what I was telling you guys forever. The problem is they've been letting people go by without depositing stuff. Well, now they're going to need the deposit. Now they're going to say we need more than the fees because the fees aren't enough to give me my $26 million bonus. Her name is Jan Fraser, CEO of Citigroup. Jan's over here walking up to these hedge funds like, I gave myself a $26 million bonus. I need a $30 million next quarter. I need you to pay your contracts. I got to make my money. And when my Ponzi scheme goes down, oh well. You see my point? It's just like a firm's board. That's all they do. Trash. Now back to this. So people are running over. So you got him going over here. He's talking. You got Powell, he's talking. He's like, yeah, we're going to end the lending program. We're going to move people more towards the discount window. Okay, what else is he talking about? Well, he talks about the repo market, and he talks about, the repo market is showing people don't understand about the repo market. It shows how much, liquid cash is at hand, how much cash is on hand. These guys have parked there where they can park overnight and go, hey, we can park this overnight. You make money. We'll get our bonds. We'll get our interest. Everybody wins. Well, when these guys have less and less and less on hand, these banks, less and less and less is being parked. Well, that's less and less these guys. Everybody's making. So it's like I said, it's like a spiraling process. So they're going to be able to bail them out less. Well, what's going on now is you have the Fed saying, well, we're not getting these big banks. So what we're going to need to do is now sign up more and more and more of these little banks to be able to make up these, the repo market. Fed standing repo facility gains traction, this is yesterday, with regional banks. Regional banks are now tapping into this because, again, they're scared to use the discount window because they don't want the bad look on the discount window, because the second that Silicon Valley Bank used the discount window or looked to tap into it, there was a bank run. So this is where you got, like I said, they're at this point where the Feds are trying to control it in a sense behind the scenes, where they're like, we can't stop the bubble. We can't stop the crash. We can't stop the market. We can't stop the economy going down. Because another huge problem that I've been showing you guys? This is the biggest problem of them all. The NASDAQ Index 100 has added $1.6 trillion in market cap just in 2024 alone. Okay? 4 companies have accounted for 95% of that $1.6 trillion. $1.5 trillion in market cap has been added from NVIDIA, who is cooking their books, Meta, who is doing the same thing, Microsoft, who is using shell companies and we showed you all that, cooking their books, and Amazon, who, when I showed you Jeff Bezos was selling, what else happened? Bloomberg showed us. I can pull it up on my Twitter here, on the side here. What else did Bloomberg show us? The person who's going to take it worse from a stagflation, a company that's going to take it harder than anybody out there. Amazon. When stagflation happens, Amazon's going to get smashed. Their revenues are going to drop drastically. Okay? So when Amazon's revenues and all this stuff start plummeting, what happens when everybody's jumped on the same hill? Well, we now know Amazon stock should go down according to everything. Numbers, value, revenue shall go down. It's going to massively drop. On top of that, what else do you have? Microsoft. Microsoft. Well, they're paying billions of dollars in taxes owed. They're a Ponzi scheme over here. They got this every single which way. They're cooking books. You got NVIDIA. They got CoreWeave. They have tons and tons of shell companies. They're buying their own chips. They're donating they're donating money. Then they have those people buy those chips. Then they go out and get investments from all these people saying that they have billions of dollars invested in NVIDIA, just like Microsoft. This is how Microsoft also cooks their books, and they cheat. So what they do is they'll go out and they'll go get a shell company. Now, let's say you're Microsoft. What you'll do is you'll say, Microsoft invested in us, and they invested $10 billion, okay? And Microsoft invested $10 billion. In reality, Microsoft gave you $1 billion in cash. And then they gave you $9 billion in credit services of Microsoft. So on Microsoft services, so cloud services, all that shit. You can have $9 billion in cloud services. But what you do is you say, Microsoft, they gave us a $10 billion, bam. You go out and you get a valuation now. You have $10 billion from Microsoft. Now let's go get a valuation from 10, 20 other firms. Hey guys, we got $10 billion from Microsoft. We're going to evaluate our company at $150 billion. Okay? Well, now what happens? Well, I showed you guys before, like I said, with tech companies. So if you're a tech company, you get an investment. What happens is they give you milestones. So you'll get a chunk of money, and then they'll say, okay, by this quarter, I want to see this progress. You have to meet your progress things to get your stimulus, your stimulation package, basically, to keep your company going, to keep that money flowing. Well, if you don't make all of those milestones, and you don't make your milestones, well, eventually, a lot of these investors have the right to pull out, not invest money, do all sorts of things like that. Well, what Microsoft is doing is they go out and they get that massive evaluation, and they're basically stealing from people. So they'll go get that massive evaluation, and they're getting looked at into doing all these shell company hoaxes, as I showed you guys in all those reports with the Doge and the Feds and all that. Like I said, these guys are like I said, it's all just criminal stuff, dude. So then they go out and they'll get that evaluation. They'll have that company pay them the $10 billion back now in cash. So now they basically took all that money from all the investors, and they know the company is not going to make it because they're not going to make their milestones. Well, guess what? Suddenly the company doesn't have $10 billion in cash and assets on hand. They don't have it. But everybody thought they did because Microsoft gave them $10 billion. Nope. Oh, so in other words, it's another scheme to where that companies is going to go under. You steal billions from those investors. Like I said, it's like, how is that not a criminal offense? It's insanity what these guys are getting away with. Now, NVIDIA is doing it even worse. Now, NVIDIA is sitting here and they're just going, all right, they take a shell company like CoreWeave, and then they say, all right, CoreWeave, we're going to give you $1 billion. You're going to buy $1 billion of my chips. Okay. So then they go over and they continuously, they'll go out and they'll do the same thing with these shell companies. They'll make a whole bunch of shell companies. They'll give them $1 billion. They'll give them all these chips. And then guess what? They're saying the demand for their chips is skyrocketing. But they're paying for them and giving them to shell companies. So they're buying their own chips to say that the demand is through the roof and they can keep charging more and more and more to everyone else. But then they're buying their own stuff. Then they're doing what we call supply chain financing, which I've gone over many, many times. But let's just say NVIDIA is cooking the books and they're doing a Ponzi scheme. Microsoft's cooking their books. They're doing a Ponzi scheme. Amazon's about to get smashed because the economy's about to get smashed. So you have everybody jumping on the same hill, and this hill's on fool's gold. So everyone's assets is going to start just going straight down. Well, what happens when everyone's assets go down? Nobody's there to borrow. All these other banks you could have maybe went to, well, they're gone now. The big banks themselves are already having problems because they don't even have enough assets on hand to cover their bad debt in commercial real estate. Not to mention their other problem they have on hand is trillions of dollars are leaving the banking sector at a time. And now their other problem is now they found out pension funds can go ahead and just sell out of their stake for $1 at a time. And then now these banks are actually left with the bags and not the pension funds. And they talk about how they're panicking because they worry this is going to become a massive trend going forward. This is really worrying some. It's going to become a massive trend. And then what does that do for commercial real estate prices? What happens if all these people start selling their stuff for $1? What does that do to commercial real estate prices? Oh, man. Meanwhile, we can't stop spending. Which means what? Treasuries, the rates are going to go up higher and higher because the debt's riskier and riskier. And there's a better and better chance the United States defaults. Why? Because I just showed you. We're operating at a loss. And every time we grow at all in any quarter, the amount of debt that it costs to grow that amount was triple the amount. So it doesn't matter. It actually hurt us. So, again, guys, they're in this place where I honestly don't know what you do. I don't know what you do to honestly, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what you really do to fix that. To fix this at this point. And I feel like this is a wild reason why you're seeing a ton of people run to crypto. Because crypto doesn't care. Crypto doesn't care if fiat currency breaks. It doesn't. It actually gains value. So again, economists are now starting to warn about another banking crisis. Like I went over, this came out yesterday. I'll go ahead and put this in the chat as well. Gifted memberships. Thank you. I appreciate that, my friend. Now let's keep going here. So not only that, like I said, so now you got the Feds actually trying to tame some of these banks going forward because they know a crash is going to happen. They see, I feel like they know that they cannot to the public say, hey, we're going to do another bailout at this point and blah, blah, blah. The economy, I think that they know that at this point, if they did another bailout when they know stagflation's about to happen, when they know they might raise rates without a bailout, that could be the start of a civil war type thing. Seriously, it could be. Like, that could be something to set everybody off to where they can't take that risk. But again, I'm showing you right now, look at how fragile your market is. It's all banked off 4 companies, again, that are all cooking books in line. So once again, money market funds, they've went up to 6.14 trillion. So since the last time I shown you a month ago, we went up over $142 billion. So if they keep up at that rate, you will hit that 1.4 trillion leaving the bank and coming into market money funds, which will again destroy the banking sector. They're already under leveraged. Now, U.S. home buying demand nears worst since 1995 because rates have went back above 7%. Like I told you guys, they're going to have to actually raise rates, not cut rates like people have thought. You cannot lower rates and give out more exposure, give out more credit, give out more free, easy access to money when your entire economy is over leveraged. Why would you let them get more over leveraged? You can't. You can't print enough. So, and on top of that, you don't have a middle class, so you cannot do it. It's impossible. Again, you're going to have nobody being able to buy anything. Corporations will go down. You're going to have a harder and harder commercial real estate problem. Home foreclosures see a noticeable increase. Now, this came out 5 days ago. Home foreclosures see a noticeable increase of ongoing living. Like I showed everybody, this is what you're going to start seeing at the beginning of this year as well. So it showed that in January, a 13% increase from the previous month. 3,954 properties in January alone were foreclosed on. So like I said, guys, bubbles are going to start to pop. There's nothing these guys can do to stop this at this point, and that is why crypto is running the way it is. Delinquency rate for multifamily housing is now higher than the Great Financial Crisis. Delinquency rates for multifamily housing higher than the Great Financial Crisis. Rust, 84 Rusty, thank you for giving all those people those memberships, man. That's awesome. What's going on here? I don't know what's going on with these memberships. I've never seen somebody do that before, but thank you. Appreciate it. He's gifted like 30 people. That's crazy. But like I said, luckily, and like he said too here, luckily we'll be able to live inside NVIDIA chips. NVIDIA is a Ponzi scheme that is propping up the world. Think of how scary that is. NVIDIA is a Ponzi scheme that is holding the world up by its scheme. We're not looking good right now. One of the things I did want to point out here, though, is if you guys look, rent comes down for the wealthy. While for all of us, it's actually going up. So one of the things I wanted to point out is, government sits there and they say, well, rent's not going up that much. It's going down, it's only going up 1-2%. Well, that's actually a lie. Because for the middle class, it's actually going up drastically. It's going up $300-400 a month. That's a lot. That's a big deal from a year ago. We can't afford an extra $300-400 a month. But what they want to do to sugarcoat that, what they want to do to make it seem like, hey, it's not that bad, that 2% doesn't show the effect on us, because what it does is they take upper class luxury apartments, They take rich people's houses. Well, guess what? Rich people's houses were about 8,000 a month, and then they dropped to 5,000 a month. So for super, high-end luxury apartments, condos, those type of things, well, the rent went down. So what they do is they go ahead and they put that in to our average. So they average it way, 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 way lower to make it seem like to the middle class, well, rent's only going up 2%. Well, for rich people, it's actually going down. For middle and lower class, it's actually going up and up and up and up. So I just want to make sure people understand that and read this down, because it talks about, some are 20% higher than they were in 2024. But since these high-end luxury apartments for the rich guys are dropping by $4,000, it makes it seem like our rent only went up 1% instead of 8-9% that it really did go up. So again, this is just another way that they lie to you, and the government goes ahead and tries to sugarcoat everything and how they sugarcoat their numbers. Another thing I wanted to show you guys is, like I said, you have all of these other corporations, you have all of these other people. Well, all of these people are sitting here and, they're all operating at losses. Their central banks are all operating at a losses. They're all going to take massive loans. Over in China, they have over $500 billion defaulting in commercial real estate. They have the same exact problem going on in the United States. Ours is larger because theirs is $500 billion. Ours is $929 billion. So we have a larger commercial real estate problem than China, and everybody's talking about China and trying to, sugarcoat ours. Ours is worse than China's. But one of the things I wanted to show you guys is China state-backed funds have poured more than $57 billion into onshore sales this year to bid to propped up market. So they're basically buying and propping up their own stuff. The government is trying to make people think that their market's attractive. How's that going to work? Like I said, this is the problem where everybody's finally starting to realize where the economy doesn't operate the way it is. You need a middle class. You not only need a middle class, you need a thriving middle class. Why? Because when you have a thriving middle class, this doesn't happen right here. When you have a thriving middle class, your GDP is actually higher than the interest and the debt that you accumulate to get that GDP, which means you can actually afford to pay down things. We pay our bills, we pay our debt, we pay our taxes when we can afford to. The difference between us and rich people is they don't pay their debt, they don't pay their bills, and they don't pay their taxes. They find loopholes and get out of this. They do carried interest debt, carried interest loophole. They do all sorts of things to where they don't pay their fair share. So again, this all ends up coming back and coming back and coming back to where, again, you don't have a functioning economy anymore. And Jerome Powell has said it himself. All right. China Country Garden actually liquidation petition adds to China's property woes. So again, you have everybody collapsing. Nobody's going to be able to bail each other out. So at some point, all of these bubbles are going to pop at once, or you're going to have to pick one or two to contain. And I honestly don't think that they're going to be able to pick the bank one to contain this time. You're going to need to contain the commercial real estate. What are you going to do with these? You're at the point where there's not enough money to print. There's not enough money to borrow. And there's not enough credit to create to where you can keep the game going. The game is coming to an end at this point. There's nothing you can do to continue it. Pentagon, like I said, all the time, we talked about over and over about Ukraine. And we talked about, the Pentagon, what they like to do. They have 1.3 trillion deficit themselves. What they like to do is they say that they bought equipment. They never buy the equipment. They say they overestimated. And then they'll say that they have the equipment. And then when people go to look in the inventory for the equipment, it's not there. It's misplaced. They can't find it. When reality is they just overestimated the budget. They kept the money. They moved it somewhere else. Well, once again, the Pentagon is investigating itself for 50 cases of theft, fraud, and corruption linked to Ukraine aid.
over $1 billion worth of American weapons dispatched to Ukraine is suddenly missing. No one knows where it is. It got up and it left. It walked out of the base by itself. People think that it's fraud, theft. They think, again, like I just said, they think that, hey, we need this money to buy this equipment. Never bought the equipment. And then they wonder why the Pentagon has a 1.3 trillion deficit, because it's that easy and everybody seems to be corrupt as hell. But right now, this was posted yesterday. Again, they're investigating 50 cases of themselves. Insanity. But like I said, guys, so for this earnings, last time we were profitable, we were at 2.6 billion at the box office. We only did 1.8 billion. Actually, it's 1.9 billion. We did 1.9 billion. So again, we're at 700 billion less, 750 billion less than when we were profitable. I know everybody thought, Taylor Swift and Beyonce did only 213 billion combined, which I thought was, Taylor Swift was going to do more than that herself, but I was incorrect. So again, I expect us to not report a profit into this earning. Sorry, I'm not trying to upset anybody. I'm just trying to give you the facts. I don't expect a positive earnings, but again, there's a ton of information I'm glad to see and hear about for this earnings. Again, I want to know exactly what his plans are going forward, future revenue, what's going on with distribution. Hopefully we get to look at the numbers for distribution, see what type of contracts we're able to get out. That would be awesome. So, does anyone have any questions though? I'm going to get going here pretty soon. But does anyone have any questions? I'll do my question portion, then I gotta go. I gotta go let my dog out. It's going crazy again. Wifey just got home. But like I said, throughout the year, everything for AMC, the situation gets better, and better. If we would have had Dune 2 like we were scheduled to have, if it didn't get pushed back because of the strike, you would have had a positive Q4. So I believe, like I said, I believe the strike and Dune, the only reason you didn't have another positive earning was because of Dune. AMC does not get anything from streaming. A lot of people think they do. We only got theatrical release rights here. So we do not get streaming, anything to do with streaming. Very good question, though. Yeah, I always go on with low expectations. Here's the thing. So when we were positive, like I said, here's how I'll leave it off. When we were positive, AMC made 1.46 billion in revenue. Obviously, cash burn. There's different things from that quarter compared to now. So, there'll be different factors, but they expect us to be at 1 billion. I expect us to be at 1.15 ish billion. So we're about 250 million ish under when we were cash flow positive. So I just want to point that out. But again, we'll see what we get from the distribution numbers and all these other factors that I don't know about yet. So we'll see what's going on here. I'm pretty excited though, because like I said, this should be our last earnings, to where this earning for Q4 and Q1 should be our last bad earnings for AMC. From that point on, all the way through 2025 into 2026, I don't see how AMC doesn't get to close enough to cash flow positive or profitable each quarter to, like I said, depending on what we start doing with distribution, very cash flow positive by the end of the year into next year. Next year, again, should be a very good year for us. The IMAX guy said it should be amazing as well. I see nothing but good stuff here going on for AMC. We see nothing but harder and harder things for streaming services. They are moving movies up every single month. Netflix is raising their price. Netflix is also coming with a subscription plan. Higher and higher and higher Netflix prices are going. Warner Brothers is no longer merging with Paramount. They're trying to sell the studio, which means more distribution potential for AMC as well. Good news for us. Price action after earnings, who knows, man. They're gonna try and because I'm sure we'll lose. Well, I'm sure they'll drop it down a little bit. They'll use any excuse. They like to prop it up before earnings and drop it day of or whatever, and then they got to put out all their articles. Oh, AMC had bad earnings, so we got to put down it dropped 30%. Yeah, we know they already have their articles written, so. I know, like I said, I'm not trying to discourage people. I know a lot of people are excited for earnings. I just don't want people's expectations going in like I was hearing on Twitter where they're like, dude, we're going to profit 120 million plus. I don't see us profitable this quarter, unfortunately. But if we would have had Dune 2, I believe we would have been. Instanet. Man, I don't know why you want. I mean, so many people have gone over Instanet. I mean, I put out a little thing about him. I'll make a little video about Instanet when everybody focused back on the day when the buy button, and Dave Lauer kind of made a video about this as well. Back when everybody was focusing on Robinhood, there was actually a company out there called Instanet, and they actually had billions and billions and billions in those fees forgiven. And I'm not too sure why. I'd have to look more into that. But there was a lot bigger criminal out there that people don't really know about, or some people do, but look more into Instanet if you want to do DD on your own, because it's a company that should have been brought to light a lot more than they were. But all right, guys, I'm gonna get going. Thank you all for listening. Peter Hahn is actually gonna go live with me on Friday this time. We had to reschedule, but everything looks good to go on Friday. So Friday morning, I should be live for a little bit, and I'll see you guys then. Thank you for listening. And hold on, I gotta thank that guy for gifting everybody the 84 Rusty, my friend. Thank you for gifting 41 people a membership. That was pretty cool. I appreciate that. Thank you guys, and have a good day.